Today's devotional is on the question of contentment. I find it interesting in my own life and in the lives of a lot of Christians that I know that contentment seems to be hard to find. Often we're not content with our circumstances. We wish we were wealthier, or wish we had better health, or better cars, or maybe better job, better circumstances in our lives. Something. We seem to be pining for something that's a little bit better than what we have right now, and it just seems to be hard sometimes to just be content with the situations we find ourselves in. And so as I've reflected on that recently, I've been drawn to Philippians 4, verses 11 to 13. And you may recall from the book of Philippians, Paul is imprisoned, and he has been receiving a gift, or a church was going to be sending him a gift, and weren't able to. And in response to the fact that he was delighted they were going to send him the gift, but he couldn't receive it, he gives these verses. So let me read verses 11 to 13 from Philippians 4. Not that I am speaking of being in need, Paul writes, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. There are two things that I think are valuable for us to see here. First, contentment is something that needs to be learned. Paul points out twice, he says, I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. And then he says later, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and being in need. This is something that needs to be learned. It isn't something that just happens. So when we find ourselves in circumstances and we wish that maybe things were better for whatever reason, whatever the reason might be, doesn't really matter. We need to take those opportunities to learn to find contentment in the secret that Paul reveals, which is that he can do all things through him, that is to say, that is Jesus, who strengthens him. So the first thing is we've got to learn this. This is something we've got to train ourselves to do. Not allow ourselves to be discontent, but in those moments of wanting and need to seek to learn how to be content in Christ and what Christ has done for us. Second thing that I'd say is that Paul recognizes that finding this contentment is not just in those circumstances where we are in need, but also in those times where we're abounding, when things seem to be going well. So we need to learn to be content, not just when things are going badly, but also when things seem to be going well. So we have to be able to catch ourselves. We have to be able to be mindful that life is so good, it seems like everything is flowing well, God seems to be blessing us, and yet at the same time, are we seeking the contentment that is found in our relationship with Christ, in the truth of what he's done for us on the cross, even, and perhaps especially in America, in those circumstances where we are abounding, where we have plenty of food, where we have a home, we have adequate shelter, excellent shelter, we have clothing, we have friends, we have cars that work, all these things that we take for granted. These, I would say, are reflections of abounding. And while we are abounding, we need to train ourselves to be content with the one who has empowered us. And when Paul writes, I can do all things through him who strengthens me, that verb for strengthen can also be the one who empowers me. And so that's Jesus. Jesus is the one that needs to be the center of our joy. He needs to be the center, the source of our joy and our greatest contentment, because everything can change. Our circumstances can change. We all know that from day to day. But if we're centered on Christ and what he's done for us, and we draw on that to be the source of our contentment, then we will find ourselves, like Paul, able to find contentment no matter the circumstance, no matter the situation, whether we're imprisoned, whether we're free and abounding, we can be content. So I encourage you to consider that and to join me in training myself and learning how to be content in no matter what circumstance we find ourselves. Thanks, and God bless you.